So here we are, and this time it's not an artist I am talking to, but an animator who decided to put his skills to good use to expand upon a childhood memory of a saga of Flash games. So, Real Space Animator, take your time to introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm, the real space animator. I pretty much like animating and stuff. And whenever I'm not animating, I usually like to spend time painting some miniatures that I get as well. And I also, I guess I just pretty much like to chill and stuff.
Is there anything else you want to say?
I guess I also like to, I enjoy doing cooking as well sometimes. I like to cook for my family. And, yeah, pretty fun as I also got like one of my own like a cookbook that I made during college where we had to write down a bunch of recipes to make and stuff.
Now, this cookbook, is it a physical book or is it something that has to be read on a computer?
It's the good old paper.
Oh, okay. So, that's awesome. Good to hear. Now, to start with a series of 4 or 5 questions that are pretty much the same ones I asked War Wrong when I interviewed him. So, the first question is, why did you choose to get into animation in the first place?
Hmm. Well, at first, it was because of when I watched the series that was done by the Blue Guy 23 and another YouTuber called Alex Splat, as they made their own pivot animations based on this. That was sort of a series of like humanity versus aliens and stuff. For Alex Splat's, his was called Alien Invasion, while for the Blue Guy 23, his was called Alien War. And they were pretty fun. And so I thought of getting into animating myself as well.
Anything else?
I guess one of the things I like to sort of learn from animating is how to try and improve its stuff.
Awesome.
It also felt entertaining to animate something as well, especially with getting inspired by other people out there. Kind of like those who were working at other companies, like I think Glitch was one of them with the Amazing Digital Circus.
That's wonderful. I think animation is a major step up from just drawing, as you are bringing still images to life. And in terms of content creation, that's one way to upload content out there for everyone to watch. And here's my second question. Just looking at the YouTube comments in your videos, I did learn about the program you mainly use for animation, which is Pivot Animator. So can you tell me, why did you choose to use this particular program? Are there benefits to using Pivot in comparison to other programs out there? And don't forget to tell me the other programs you use as well.
I I first started with Pivot Animator because of with Alex and the Blue Guy also using Pivot for their own series as well. And for me, it sort of felt easier to animate on Pivot. Since I tried starting to use Source Filmmaker before, but it never really worked, like when I tried using it for the first time. And I guess for me, it felt quite easy and simple to use.
Right. Source Filmmaker, the program you mentioned, I've heard of it before. I think a lot of people have heard of it. It's a program that's actually easy to use, especially if your goal is to make still images as opposed to animation. And the one thing that I did bring up with just about almost everybody I talked to is the fact that, again, from my personal experience, I shouldn't be saying facts, but whatever, okay. In Source Filmmaker, you have an abundance of assets you can use. However, when you compare to Gary's mod, for example, Gary's mod actually has more from what I can tell. And the answer was due to the fact when you try to import something into Source Filmmaker, it's a lot more work in comparison to something like Gary's mod. So again, that explains why with Gary's mod, you can find just about anything exported there. So, what else was I gonna ask you? You have a lot of animation videos on your channel, and I remember from what you said in the description in some of your videos and what you also told me. You have a team that currently helps you with your real space for animations, which is clearly a step up in comparison to what you started out with, doing everything on your own. So by all means, can you tell me what it was like to start out with animation on your own with the skills you had at that time, how your skills evolved, what did you find challenging with animation, and how things have changed now that you have people helping you with this ongoing fan project?
I guess I guess for at first it was a bit of a struggle because that's when I first started. Since at first I used I think it was 18 FPS compared to my new animations which use 15 FPS, and it sort of felt. And the more I look at it back then, the more it feels fast as well. And so by sort of decreasing the FPS, it sort of makes it a bit more better for people to watch as well, rather than think flying past quickly. And I guess for the team, it has been actually a major help as well with some stuff, such as in the first segment of Part 13 when the animation for the Ursula Horde Emperor and Galician Venus was done, because to me, I wasn't really the best at animating like people fighting back then, like in the old days when I first started. But over time, I tried to improve the animation fighting between two people. Although it does take a bit of time to try and make it look good, sometimes I always feel proud of what I do with like how it goes and stuff. And for like with the series helpers, they sort of help in many ways. For an example, they can make sprites for the series or help with lore and stuff, or even in animation as well. And one of our members also helps with making some of the models to be turned into sprites on, I think it was Blender, where it has some kind of, I think it was called the melt engine, or malt, MALT, where it can convert a model into a sprite as well, which can, I guess from my point of view, help save a lot of time as well. And I think that's all I got right now.
Awesome. And I think you know already, I am not an animator and I am not an artist. But I do understand just about when it comes to when you acquire a skill, starting out, you are not the best and it takes time. It will make you feel impatient, just wanting to be better right away on the spot. But just from what I observe when it comes to animation or drawing, I know it's a long process with many steps you have to deal with. And whatever you are learning, there's going to be things that are objectively easy to do, but at first glance, even something easy is seen as difficult. So I can tell you, even all the way back from my childhood, when I watched many YouTube videos and saw these thumbnails many YouTubers made for their videos, yes, there were a lot of consistencies with the formats they did, so I used to think that was something difficult or at a professional level. But when I look around, most of the time, it's easy enough because, again, with most thumbnails, you are just placing in images as layers and adding in text, and any simple effects added on are usually easy to do, such as content aware fill or any adjustments to make things brighter, or any other effect that is done with a click of a button or slider that follows through to ask you how you want to adjust things. But it's true, it's a different story if you want to draw the entire thumbnail as opposed to just editing in images that other people have made. So with all of that being said and out of the way, and in relation to my previous question, what did you find difficult about working as a team as opposed to working on a project by yourself?
I guess the first thing that was a bit of a struggle was some people sort of wanting their stuff to sort of show that they can actually be strong rather than appearing weak at first. And sometimes one of them was about jealousy of some other artists' skills as well, as it was a bit of a struggle at first, but I think now it's being handled a bit better than it was earlier, I guess. And I guess it sort of makes it easier to also, with the team, it also sort of helps me as well, since I sort of have to go to college and stuff. With the team, it sort of helps me with time as well, with having to make the right animation progress as well. That's all I got.
Okay. And was there a lot of disagreements? And did you by any chance have any sort of roadmaps or deadlines for your team to fulfill? The reason I'm asking you this question is because at first glance, what you present on your channel is an upload schedule that isn't random, I would say, but it's almost as if content is being uploaded on a frequent basis, which can be a lot, right?
Yeah, a bit. I guess another reason why I also am very grateful for the team as well is because sort of earlier back in the day, there was one time where college expected me to do a lot of work even outside of college when I was finished for the day, which was a bit annoying as well. I guess some of the conflicts have been resolved quite easily, but I guess one of them had to resolve in one of the members being removed from the team.
Right.
And it wasn't easy at first, but you had to get used to it. Yeah, I think that's all I got right now to say. Sorry.
What you were talking about, were you talking about like teams you had to deal with in college classes?
Oh, I mean, for the team, I mean, like in the animation and the series, not the college team.
Oh, okay, because you kind of it sounded like you were going back and forth a little bit, so I got mixed up there. Yeah, okay. So you said there were some conflicts, and could you tell me how many people did you had to toss out? Just one?
Uh, I guess two if that counts. But for the first one, it turns out it was basically someone who's just spying and stealing stuff from us, and also made a lie that made a lot of us unhappy. Was that they said they were making a game based on our series or like a mod for Rusted Warfare, but when we found out that wasn't true, a lot of us weren't happy and just disappointed. And for the second one, oh boy, it was a lot.
And to go back, when you were looking for people to join your team, did you have a plan on how the team would look? Are you talking about you are overseeing 5 people and stuff like that? Each person does this and that for a specific deadline. Can you tell me that?
I guess for me, the one thing I never really liked about sometimes was when it's like from my experience, what I saw with some stuff I liked to watch before I started animating was how sometimes people sort of gave like very harsh deadlines as well with some things, which it felt like sometimes it resulted within very cheap animation, I guess. I guess the only point I probably have to set a deadline is if it's like something really big and important, because as of right now, I haven't really gave anyone deadlines because I sort of care more about the quality of everything than the quantity, to be honest. Which is why if a series helper ever felt stressed or tired, I would always give them the green light to always just take a break if they want to. Since I always make sure that their mental health comes first, I guess, sometimes. Well, I try my best to help with making sure that everyone's okay.
Right, because it really spiked my curiosity at first when I came across your channel, because I don't know if it's my brain remembering things wrong, but I don't have the upload dates memorized, because I remember whenever I would get a notification about your uploads, it felt like it was almost every day you were uploading stuff. And that was the impression that I got. And it is nice to see that you care about quality, especially when it's not easy to deal with overseeing at least one other person for your team, because I understand if you were working by yourself, you have the green light to do whatever you want whenever you want. But the second you bring someone else along with the team, unless they're really flexible and just don't care, and that's a different story. Now, for myself, when it came to upload schedules for content creation, the only disagreements would be time management and agreeing on the time to start a project, which most of the time, if I want to bring someone along to play a multiplayer game, there were disagreements not really on when we start, but it's about when we call it a day, because this should be a surprise. While some would play a multiplayer game for multiple matches, which could be at least 5 matches, there were times I found myself wanting to call it a day even after 3 or 4 matches, or just taking breaks in between matches, which struck some people as an inconvenience. But I'd say for video games and even multiplayer, it doesn't hurt to be on your own, so you have more control over when you can take a break and just have more freedom, because it happened before, but it wasn't anything like a hostile disagreement. They were just more surprised with, oh, that's it? Okay. So with those words out of the way, what about any misconceptions you had about animation and Flash games at first? And did any of those misconceptions stick with you today?
Uh, in what kind of way misconception? If that's okay to ask, since usually you
Um,
still get it gets different taught different in my kind of family.
okay, so a misconception about animation or Flash games. So it's something that you thought was true. You could put it that way. You could think, oh, is animation something that's expensive? Or Flash games are as difficult to develop in comparison to games that are not Flash games that are more advanced? You know, that kind of stuff.
I guess the only misconception I probably had was thinking that Pivot Animator had some kind of like editing software in it so that you can add sounds and stuff. That's what I thought it had, to be honest, when I first before I got Pivot. But when I sort of found out, it was a bit of a slight annoyance, but then I decided to sort of get Filmora, which is like what I use for the sound editing of my videos. And to use that, it feels nice and quite easy to use. Makes everything feel, I guess, organized a bit for sounds.
And for any image editing, that there's more. Is there like more than one program you're using, or do you just stick with one, like Photoshop?
For the sprite making stuff, I use an app called Medibang Paint Pro, which can be downloaded, and it is free to use as well.
And is it something that would be seen as difficult to use for anybody, or is it about as easy as making a YouTube thumbnail with it?
I think it depends on how you start as well, since I guess not everyone sort of starts as an easy expert, where kind of like a video game where you have to work your way up and stuff.
Okay, that's one comparison I never knew would be brought in, because I could tell you, and this is gonna be a surprise to you, I guess. GIMP? That one I found difficult to use, so I gave up on that one. So ever since, because most of the time I'm just making thumbnails for YouTube videos, it would just be those online photoshops such as pixlr.com or photop. Those two are free photoshops. They look very identical to the actual thing, and it has just about almost anything Photoshop has. And the bare minimum that I would say that I found useful is content aware fill. So with content aware fill, you can actually take stuff out of a picture if it's blocking the way. And as far as I can tell, it can do a good job with removing, let's say, a crosshair that shows up in the video game or a HUD. But it depends on where you are in the map of a video game, because sometimes content aware fill may not know what you want. And if you were trying to remove it yourself, then if you don't know how to draw, such as me, and it can get nowhere unless you can find a way to tuck the messed up area away in the corner or something like that. So that all of that out of the way about Photoshop. What are your next steps or goals on improving with animation, and anything else you will present in your Real Space for fan animations? This can include things such as deleted scenes or anything else you wanted to add or remove from the videos you uploaded, for example.
I guess one of the things I want to try and implement more is kind of like full, I guess, more intense single people fights as well, and probably some kind of like different diagonal like directions of where a character faces as well, kind of like the trailer from the Death Battle Eggman versus Bowser thing, where it was facing towards the screen. I kind of wanted to try something more like that, make some of the single people fights a bit more interesting and fun, and I guess chaotic, I guess.
But then again, did you have any ideas that were originally supposed to be in your videos, but you decided to toss them out?
I'm actually trying to remember since it's been a long time. I guess there was one which I had to remove because the pivot file got sadly corrupted a bit, which was a pain, but had to improve it a bit. For an example, in part 6, when one of the Katuri was doing a melee charge with its arm blade, it was intended to go a little bit longer, but the second half of the file was sadly corrupted.
Okay. And anything else other than the file being corrupted? Any deleted? Sorry, go ahead.
I don't really have any deleted scenes that I I don't really have any deleted scenes yet, to be honest. I guess for extended scenes, I guess I could try, because for part 13, when the rest of these segments are completed, I'm going to sort of take a page out of like how Defuka Boom did it with his series where he sort of combines the episodes into one massive thing. With part 13, all of its 6 segments will be combined into one episode with a little bit of extra scenes into it as well. That's all I got.
Okay, and once you upload a video, did you spot any errors that were present, and then you just had nothing to do with it anymore? You just said, okay, well, it's too late now.
I guess one of them was in part 10 when some of the audio wasn't working for some of the weapons as well, which it was a bit annoying, but I was like, it's too late for that.
I think I know what you're talking about, because in the video in part 10, I recall after the United Fleet and Katuri decided to team up and all the weapons were going off, the audio sounded pretty loud. Like, it wasn't smooth, it was loud.
Yeah,
So that's one thing I remember.
That was way before I discovered you could turn down the sound, decrease the sound volume of it in the Filmora as well. And that was sort of a year ago, and I sort of been improving with trying to make the sounds better. And another point of the sound error was, I think, it was at 13 minutes and from 13 minutes and 20 seconds all the way up to 13 minutes and 25 seconds, because some of the rifle sounds weren't working, and I realized there was probably some error with the exporting thing of Filmora at the time. Your turn.
And that does remind me, I forgot to mention, the video editing program that I use to this day is called Olive. I'm not sure if you heard of that one, but from what I was told, I think it's open source and it's free. I would say the program is easy enough, provided you've touched a computer before. And the second most important thing when it comes to making videos, you are not expecting anything complicated. So just cutting a sequence and adding in text and just adding in layers like you would in a photo editing program. And for my next question, can you walk me through the typical process of yourself, or in this case, your team, creating a real space for video? And I need to know how different the process is now that you're making the videos with a team, and how different it is if you were making the videos on your own.
I guess since when I was doing it on my own, it was always a lot of action and stuff before sort of the big plot stuff happened. And when that usually happened, I sort of knew, since I had it planned in my head. But I guess with the team, it's going to have like more communication and stuff required. As for the segment of part 13, the script is being handled by one of the members called Thingo, who is sort of the creator of the aliens that sort of appear in the segment there, that sort of have the really colorful appearance, like from what others told me, some kind of video game called Terraria with a Calamity mod thing. Okay. I don't know much about it, but that's sort of what's been happening right now, where Thingo is, I think, still cooking up the script for segment 3 right now.
And for your videos, was anyone ever late on delivering something they were in charge of?
Not that I know of, from what I'm trying to remember. I guess the only time there was a small delay, right now is one of our members who's a good friend of mine, who's called Jazz Nations. He's currently cooking up like a sort of like, you saw the poster for the first segment, right? Where it sort of has an anime style to it. He's cooking up the second one right now, and it's taking him time, which I like. I want him to take his time, since usually he makes some of the really nice art that I've seen really nice poster art that I've ever seen before. That's all I got.
Okay, and here's the next question. Do you plan on using any other programs for your content, or are you sticking with what you are currently using? I think if you want to try other programs or get on board more members to help with giving other programs a shot, that would be awesome to see your fan creations improve. So what do you think on telling other members, hey, could you perhaps try something out in Blender, for example, or Source Filmmaker, if that's your expertise?
I guess one of the things that I do sort of plan later on in the episodes is to sort of have voice acting, because I'm not really sure about that whole AI stuff with voices because to me it just feels a bit weird, like as if a spider's crawling on your leg. It just gives me that feeling of weirdness that I don't really know how to fully describe it.
I think I
And I
can
guess,
describe it for you if that's fine.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so with those voices, they're robotic, but they don't sound good in comparison to how I guess a studio would pull it off. They would try to make it so it sounds cool, not just I guess plain cheese, like a plain cheese pizza. There is some ingredients on top of it. So with those AI voices, the problem is they just sound dull. They sound pretty obvious that they're not done by an actual person. And the thing is, if you were to try those programs, even if you tell the program, okay, say this one paragraph, there's going to be some parts where certain words, certain parts in the paragraph will sound off and not consistent with the whole thing. So if you were to post it on YouTube and ask your fans, oh, can you tell this is real or fake? And if somebody was gullible enough, they would think it's real. But if someone who's paying attention would realize, okay, you can clearly tell something is up, especially that one part that just blows your cover. And I forgot to ask, for anyone on your team, is anybody specialized in a Source Filmmaker, Blender, or the like?
Some of our members are experts in other modeling softwares. For an example, three of our members, let me find them: Dexter, Excalibur, and K Kung. They always use for Dexter and K Kung. They use Blender to make some vehicle-like models as well. While for Excalibur, he uses something called Prisma 3D, and so they sort of spend their time working on it for the series as well. And my only sort of request is that they just take their honest time as well, since I've seen what it's like on trying to use Blender for the first time, and it is not fun, especially for my PC.
That's understandable. For their skills, are they at a high level, something advanced, or something along the lines of a beginner level?
I don't really know since I don't really like to pry into other people's businesses. But I guess compared to me, it's sort of high level compared to when I tried using Blender for the first time, or Prisma 3D.
Right. Well, even if you show me their work or behind the scenes content, obviously I'm not going to judge because, one, I'm not an expert with those programs. And two, okay, if you're doing, like this is just a fan project, and I would say, okay, just do what you have to do with your skills. I'm not here to make fun of you and say, oh, this is terrible unless you're my best friend or something. I wouldn't say it like that. It's just mean and stupid. Just you're pulling off something casual. Why go crazy like that? That kind of feedback, it's pointless. It's pointless. And with that out of the way, my next question is there anything you like about your fan animations in terms of lore? This can be stuff such as your favorite factions and characters.
I guess one of the things I like about it is how, for some factions, it gives a mysterious vibe. For an example, with the Grimoires and the Chloris, a lot of people don't know secrets about them that I'm keeping hidden because I like to give it a little bit of a surprise. It's like that whole feeling of the unknown. And I guess another thing they like to do for the lore is because in like the third Real Space game, it sort of felt like a cliffhanger for some of the factions. And that's sort of why I've been doing this series, to sort of give it like a conclusion to the story and stuff. Because after Real Space 4 is finished, we plan to work on the prologue, which would take place on Earth. And after the prologue, we will work on the Real Space series from 1 all the way to 3 in animations and stories that will expand the lore and the story for it, showing not just the human side, but also the Katuri side and others as well in it.
Right. And
that's all I got.
Okay, and do you have like a favorite character or faction from the series? They can be from your fan series, which is Real Space 4, or from the actual games themselves.
Can I be biased for this one?
I don't care.
For my favorites, I guess it's Baz Zelvin, the Mysterious Katuri, that has appeared in part 11. along with Grimoire's Prime, since he's sort of meant to be viewed as the main antagonist right now. And I guess for other characters I really like is the Katuri Emperor, since he does go through some hardship with, sadly, the loss of his close loved one at the hands of Grimoire's Prime from so many years ago. It's sort of to show the struggles that some people have as well when losing a loved one. Sort of try and give that emotion feeling in the series as well. That's all I got.
Right. And what about any of like the technologies present in the series? Like, are you a fan of what the Katuri made, or what the United Fleet made, or any other factions in space?
I love how I sort of did the Katuri, where compared to the humans, the Katuri always use hover-based vehicles because of it being more effective. But for the humans, they sort of use it because they use tracked vehicles because for them it keeps them closer to home. For an example, Earth.
Yeah, that's one way to go about it. That's actually something I never thought of. Let's see what I want to say about the Katuri or the United Fleet. Something that I did want to bring up is the fact that when I was watching your series, I'll be honest with you, I lost track as to what was going on, because in some videos, I guess we go back to the beginning, I understood it was starting out with the United Fleet and Katuri just fighting it out. And then, obviously, we got the Alien Union coming in to crash the party. But then again, as the series went on, I'll be honest, I obviously lost track who was who. And in your animations, I'll be honest with you, there were moments where I had to rewatch them multiple times, because when the camera is panning around, I would forget, wait, is the camera pointing to the Katuri or the Alien Union? Which one is which? So I got really mixed up over there. Yeah.
I'm a bit sorry for that, but we do definitely plan to improve that by implementing a sort of like a little, in some military uniforms, how they have like the combat fatigues, they have like a little symbol on it and stuff.
Yeah, I know.
We're sort of planning to implement that soon with the symbols for the Alien Union and the United Galactic Federation. And for the Katuri, a lot of their soldiers are going to be having the symbol now on their shoulder pad.
Mm-hmm.
And for the United Fleet, they're always going to have the symbol on their shoulders as well, or sometimes their vehicles.
That would be really helpful, because not only are you making it easier for everyone to identify who is who, but it brings in more detail and more to life about the groups. Because right now, from what I remember, the Alien Union, all I see are stick figures running about. So thank goodness you plan on making things with more detail. Now, if you were to ask me that question, I think it's the idea of how your fan series goes in depth. So we know the real space games, you can see it as the 40K games, but on a budget, which means it's not much. Stuff is similar, but it's on a lesser scale. Now, what I like about your series and how you went about it, you went the opposite. So instead of just a 40K universe on a budget, you went the other way by going in depth and showing us, okay, it's not just naval combat in space and above planets. You're presenting even more into how, let's say, the United Fleet and Katuri Empire are. So for the United Fleet, I recall there's a Spec Ops branch called the Dark Fleet. Then for the Katuri, it's made up of various species, I think. And for all groups, other than the cool ships and stuff like that, outside you got ground forces, which are on the ground on planets killing each other. And I like that you included stuff like power armor for the United Fleet and other technologies in general, because it shows, again, you're giving life to more than one faction. And it also shows stuff outside of naval combat, because I understand with the real space games we never saw stuff outside of that. But if you played the Real Space 3 game, there's one mission where you had to board a cruiser. Well, no, you're escorting transports that will go into the cruiser to hijack it. So that, even back then, made me think, oh, imagine a scene where we can see the United Fleet boarding the cruiser and taking out the defenders in there. But I think the part where your content goes deep into the rabbit hole is showing more than one group, like I said. So apart from the United Fleet and the Katuri Empire, you have the Alien Union, which was the major group that eventually caused both sides to team up, which is cool. And other than videos you present, it's good to see how your team has helped you with creating the content. Specifically, what drew me into it all was knowing you have someone in charge of stuff such as writing lore for your fan series, which obviously includes things other than combat, such as the economics of various groups the United Fleet are fighting against, the technological progression of the two ever since Real Space 3, and the environments where groups such as the Kuturi are from. For example, days ago, weeks ago, I don't remember, you showed me variations of how the Kuturi look, and it depends on which planets or environments they grew up in, correct?
It is correct. It's sort of like a quick evolution to an adapt of an environment, where green is sort of their most common variant, and usually on some harsher worlds they sort of develop a darker scale skin, and for some, which are very rare, there's sort of like a very blackish light skin on sort of worlds that barely get any lights at all. It's sort of a way to making it feel different, kind of like with humans, how they have different skins and stuff, and different hair color.
Mm-hmm.
And so, since the Kuturi don't naturally have hair, I sort of traded that for eyes as well, where they have different colored eyes.
Yeah, scary eyes. Okay, that really scares me. Okay, next question.
That's racist to aliens.
Red eyes, green eyes, I forgot. Okay, is there anyone you have in mind you would like to collaborate with or bring on board on your team for multiple videos? Or would you get an artist, for example, to draw stuff for you?
I guess one of the things I'd like to do one day is to probably collaborate with Alex Splat, since Blue Guy sort of retired a bit from pivot animation and has moved on to making very nice Blender renders that he always does. Like, the stuff that Blue Guy has made from his old animations is just a chef's kiss, to be honest. Like, he has really improved a lot. And for Alex Splat, it would be a bit tough since some of us sort of have like in real life stuff to do as well. Because I think Alex Splat has a job right now and sort of has to split the time a bit. And for like someone like Blue Guy, he sort of moved on from pivot animation.
Right, so that reminds me. Okay, because what you are presenting, it's at your skill level. I respect that. I do. Because everything's done in pivot, especially at lower detail. I figure if I was to tell you, some artists who could probably draw your stuff at a greater detail and scale, I'd imagine while some artists can work with the idea of trying to picture things for themselves with little references, the problem is I think even they would have trouble, because if I was to recommend you some artists who could help, the one thing they'll be scratching their heads over is, okay, the references you're giving me, they're at a lower scale. So if stuff isn't that clear, how can I bring stuff to my art style? You know what I'm trying to say?
I sort of do. It's sort of one of the reasons why I always sort of like to sort of use visual aid when explaining how something should be made, since for me, visually showing what to make is a bit easier sometimes for me.
Because with what you have, or I guess what the Real Space games have already, even though there's a lack of information on the actual sizes of the ships, I figure for the ships that existed in the actual games themselves could be something artists could pull off. The main thing is you gotta tell any artist, okay, just make sure this ship is the size of what the hell do I say? The size of, let's say, an F-22, for example. So that's one thing you can start off with. And for something like UFS Antares, how you pronounce it, whatever, I don't care. That ship, Antares, that one, I'd imagine, like I told you many times, that ship, like the Vengeance, I think it's like a fighter jet. However, it's even bigger than a fighter jet. And I only say that because when you look at KFS Vengeance and UFS Antares, you notice in the cockpit windows, it's split into two, so it's pretty obvious it's not going to be manned by one person. There's got to be a co-pilot there to do other things as well. And another thing that both will show is the fact that for Vengeance and Antares, both of them can mount stuff that can be seen on the large ships, such as laser cannons or a bunch of missiles that can go out and target one particular target, right?
Yeah, kind of like when Vengeance had that special cruiser team weapon that he tried to use on Antares multiple times.
Yeah, and I remember now, It's coming back to me, actually. I think with KFS Vengeance, when you first encounter him in Real Space 3, he had the standard cannons that pretty much shoot one by one, and then the next encounter he has these cannons that fire two at once, and after that the other encounters, like the final encounter where you fight him one-on-one by yourself, he has a laser cannon that he somehow brings back. But it actually makes me laugh though, thinking now, looking back, he got the laser cannon pretty quickly, unless there's an in-universe explanation, such as, oh, the Katuri know how to master mounting stuff on their ships pretty fast.
I see.
You remember that final level?
Yep, I remember when I watched it. I remember watching it a few years ago as well.
Yeah, and for my next question, would you consider making animations for any other series of games in general, or Flash games?
One of the things I am planning to work on is a fan animation based on the most recent game that I've been quite enjoying a lot, which is Iron Meat. It's sort of a retro-inspired game as well.
Now, do you have a planned, like a roadmap for it? Like, do you want to make 10 videos of it, 20 videos?
I sort of planned a 5-part thing where it sort of shows, even though it won't be canon, it'll still be fun to sort of show how the rest of the world is reacting to the invasion of the meat, since most of it, I think, takes place in Russia as well, the meat invasion. From reading most of the road sign maps in Stage 6, where you're in a city, you get to see, I think it's Russian wording for signs and stuff. I sort of like to try and show how other countries would be handling the meat's invasion.
From what you know and from experience, especially with other people telling you, what do you think is difficult to draw?
What could be difficult to draw? I guess one of the things that could be a struggle is drawing without a reference, since sometimes I'm not really the best with getting proportions right on some bodies. Because I remember the first time I tried drawing without a reference, I accidentally made what was basically the equivalent of that one villain from The Nightmare Before Christmas that had all the bugs inside of his body. I can't remember his name.
Okay, so for me, I would think it's difficult to draw vehicles because once you understand everything that makes up a vehicle, especially if you are trying to nail everything down to how a specific car looks without resorting to drawing the car with aftermarket components or to your own interpretation. So for example, if you take a look at just about any car out there, you would think, oh, okay, so a car in silver. And then you take a look even closer, you realize, okay, to draw the headlights, oh, it makes up all these lines and shapes. Oh boy. Now that's where it can get complicated because I've taken a look at more than one artist and how everyone does their own thing, respectfully speaking. Everyone, they may try to cheapen certain parts of the car. So for example, the grille on the front, sometimes they just leave it all black, so it saves time on drawing the lines, while some don't. And, I've seen artists where how they draw the cars, some could be drawn too small, some could be drawn to look like a damn tank, which is too big. And then there's one artist called MenziQR. I would say he's the best one I've seen so far. And I actually commissioned him 2 times. I will link you later to the drawings. I'm not sure if I showed you the drawings before, but they're pretty good. And from what I remember, I think what contributes to him being an expert on drawing cars would be the fact that he actually goes to a racetrack and drives those track cars before. So I think, he has the knowledge on how a car looks, how a car functions, and not just on the outside, but also details on the inside. Because as I said, a car on the outside, it looks easy enough for anyone to draw. Even if somebody wanted to make one in Blender, for example, just shapes connected together with a color. But once you go inside, whether it's the vehicle interior or even more complicated, the under the hood where the engine is, now that's where things get complicated. And again, it comes down to what you're trying to do. So if you want to nail things down to how they look out of the factory and you're trying to get details correct, I said this before in one of my videos, it comes down to how much references you can actually locate, or if you can see these cars on a frequent basis, because it depends on the car we're talking about. Take for example the Subaru WRX RX STI. I've seen those cars around. They're not rare, I would say. So just being around those cars and looking at what's online for me to see, I can just gather references for the car pretty easily. And yeah, something like the turn signals, for example, that's one thing I consider difficult to locating media for, because as I said in one of my videos, something like a turn signal for a Camaro, that one I can't even locate media of it at all. Maybe I'm just too lazy on researching. I don't know. Okay, but then to move on to the next question. For a crossover question, if you remember the Clash and Slash Flash games, do you think the aliens from that game are pushovers in comparison to the Katuri Empire, or in this case, the other factions in your fan series?
I guess it sort of depends on the species, to be honest. If you count the Alien Union's cannon fodder, they would probably get pushed over like a bully trying to steal a kid's piece of candy. But for comparing them to other races like the Eclaris, which appeared in Part 7, it would definitely be a big comparison with some of the technologies that they have.
Right.
For me, it sort of always depends on the era as well of the war. That's what I always like to do before comparisons.
Well, I want to double check actually, and I should have sent you some stuff about the games. You've seen the Clash and Slash Flash games, right?
I've recently been looking into it.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It's quite interesting.
Like all the display of lasers and weapons going off, the chain reactions you can do, and the music as well.
It's like the interest thing. It catches your interest.
Yeah, it's like looking at a shiny new car. And from what I can tell you with the Clash and Slash games, so for the Clash and Slash series, there are two of it in the series. The first one is just called Clash and Slash, and then the sequel maintains a similar title with the extra words added in, so it's called Clash and Slash Worlds Away. I personally think the aliens from the Clash and Slash series, they aren't much of a problem, especially technologically, as they seem to rely on the tactic of overwhelming their enemies with huge numbers. So if the Katuri Empire faced off against the aliens from the Clash and Slash series, I'd imagine they have a pretty good chance because, again, the aliens from Clash and Slash, technologically speaking, they don't seem to have anything crazy, not as powerful compared to the Katuri. Now, in comparison, let's say if the Katuri Empire would face off against the aliens from a different Flash game called Phoenix Assault. Because in that game, the aliens don't appear to rely on numbers, from what I can tell. But I would say, technologically, they are better than the aliens from the Clash and Slash series. Because in the game, they have stuff set up just about everywhere. In space, on their planet, underwater, and even down to where the core of the planet is located. So that's a spoiler right there. And the technologies they do have those like mecha suits. And I told you this in a YouTube comment, they have this like red piece of stuff on their ships where it shoots out lasers, but you can't even tell where the lasers are coming from. They just come out of the red piece, that's it. And you haven't heard of the Phoenix Assault Flash game, haven't you? Or have I told you?
Not really.
Okay, so...
Sorry about that.
So, okay, whatever, I don't care. Phoenix Assault, it's one of those single-player downloadable games. I think it's the same category as Flash games. So it starts out with you fighting the aliens in space. Pretty simple enough. Then the next level, you go to their planet. So you go down to the surface, and their planet is a majority of water. And then after that, you go underwater. And then after the underwater level, you go down even deeper towards the lava areas or the core of the planet. So they pretty much have the technology to adapt and set up systems just about anywhere they are, especially on their planet. And that game, it holds another good memory of Flash games or games I've played in the past. And just like the Clash and Slash series, the one thing about media back in the 2000s, early 2000s, when it comes to soundtracks, that is the one thing you could never mess up. Just about everything that I remember, Flash games, cartoons, anime, okay, the soundtracks are awesome. I love them.
Love me some good anime.
Of course. And those games like Phoenix Assault and Clash and Clash and Slash Worlds Away, you can actually play them because, people have archived them. And thank goodness, because just like with most people, I never had a gaming computer back in the day. So to run games like that, back then it was seen as, oh my goodness, this is some next level technology that I have to use in order to run the game. But anyways, to improve on animation, do you see yourself improving your animations and drawings to greater detail? And if this makes things easier for you, you can mention an artist or other animators as examples.
I guess one of the things I want to try and improve on is like how some stuff look in style of the animation. For an example, making the grimoires look more grotesque and gross in some details. And I guess I also want to improve on animating as well, to sort of have people enjoy just a simple sci-fi series,
Right. I was going to ask you for improving on animations. The one thing I would say you could improve on, and I guess if you want to tell your team members if they haven't fallen asleep yet, when it comes to, ship designs, I guess, for the factions that we know already, the Katuri and the United Fleet, you could possibly try to have more shots where you see the weaponry on the ships, because the one thing, I'll be honest with you, yes, I understand how weapons work now, but back then, I didn't realize, okay, the cannons are probably aiming at an angle and they're not facing each other, because back then when I played Real Space 2 and Real Space 3, I was looking at the games and I'm thinking to myself, wow, the cannons are not gonna hurt each other when they're mounted on the ship. Well, that's pretty cool. It was only like years later I realized, oh, okay, so it's probably like on a staircase kind of design, like actual naval ships we see, where the one cannon is right over here and then the next one behind it, it's obviously elevated at a higher elevation, if that was the case.
I guess we kind of do have something like that for one of the ships, which is the Arcadia Battle Carrier, which appeared in Part 4 and has been actually in lore been getting a new model variant as well.
Yeah, so I think with your animations, you could probably show some more of the naval combat, especially, I guess, more close-up shots with the cannons actually doing their thing, or the weapons, because those are weaponry we see in sci-fi all the time. Don't forget missiles as well, because I find with sci-fi stuff, it's often done to show combat at close range, or it's referencing, how older combat used to be, where ships are not using any missiles, obviously, they're doing it at more closer ranges. I guess it's for making the scenes more closer together, because not everyone has large screens like movie theaters, but still.
I guess for some races, some of them still use missile launchers, such as the Zine, for an example. And it can be quite brutal, because their missiles actually also, if the missiles get inside a ship, it actually explodes into a large napalm-like weapon, which is not fun, as before it explodes into napalm, it also basically it spews out a ton of highly flammable liquids as well, which can result in more damage to fire, as the Zine like to believe in something that they call the Great Flame.
Right, so with what you're currently showing with your fan series, does the Alien Union or any other faction outclass both of the United Fleet and Katuri?
I guess the Aclaris outmatch the humans and Katuri in technology right now.
Wow.
It's just that I'm hiding their main force right now, because people have only seen the Vanguard.
Okay.
They're not going to be ready for the main force.
So with what you're showing right now, is there a scene of them destroying a planet?
There's a scene of them completely devastating a human colony.
Right.
And there's also them taking part in the battle for that one planet in the segment 2, where it shows them easily taking out one of their only medium vehicles was capable of destroying basically a 500-foot tall Titan with a clean shot to the head.
Wow.
And they sort of had a problem where they had everything they needed from when they were in their prime, and they sort of lost all of it, because they're meant to be seen as like very egotistical and very mean to and very rude to other alien races.
Okay.
And the only time they're sort of not like this is to the Grimoires, because despite them being, well, made of flesh, the horrifying truth is that the Grimoires are even more dangerous than the Aclaris.
Right, so the deadliest faction award goes to not the Alien Union?
I guess it's 50-50 on that, since the Grimoires since Grimoires Prime founded the Alien Union.
Oh, okay.
It's like a weird thing where somebody gets like 50% credit because it made the thing. Like
It's like sharing credit for a group project.
yeah, it's kind of like, hello, I'm in the
Yeah.
corner. I haven't done anything, but I'll take credit.
Yeah, because the one thing... Go ahead.
Oh god, those kinds of people will remind me back in my day when it happened.
Yeah, we all been there.
Yep.
Because the one thing that I remember, and why I'm asking the question about planet-killing weapons, is because the one thing we actually seen in the real space games, I know the United Fleet was close to doing that, but I know the Katuri, when they were bombarding Earth, somehow they destroyed Earth with just their cannons and missiles. And now that I remember that scene, they didn't even bother to show, in Real Space 2, I guess, is different. They don't show laser cannons, but then when you actually go to Real Space 3, because the budget for that game was different and better, they do show the laser cannons actually being used to tear the planet apart and explode.
I guess one of the things I definitely do plan, in lore, the reason why Sirius Prime, it sounds like I'm saying Sirius. It's hard to pronounce names.
Just say Sirius Prime, I'm not going to judge.
For Sirius Prime, the Katuri Emperor, when he heard about it, immediately poured his psychic energy into a device which activated basically a giant shield over the Katuri cities and the planets, which led to a quick arrival or basically it arrives from the bombers to arrive out of nowhere to drive the humans back.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the in-lore explanation as to why Sirius Prime was destroyed easily, but then Earth wasn't destroyed easily, but then Earth was shattered, along with the moon for the planet of Earth.
Yeah, I remember that opening scene with the bombers coming in. But that's the one thing I remember about the game. And now that I have that game in my mind again, that also reminds me of how bad I was at Real Space 2 until I found the cheat codes for it. I think it was the fourth level that I couldn't get past. And yeah, but once after I got past those levels, I enjoyed the other levels beyond the first 3 and 4. And yeah, I remembered how the designs in Real Space 2, you can see how vastly different they are in comparison to Real Space 3. But I feel they should have brought stuff from the second game over, because when you take a look at Real Space 2, there are some outposts that showed them in the shape of a flower, I believe.
Starbase, I think one of them was called Starbase 69.
Yeah, that one. And then in Real Space 3, they tossed the whole flower stuff out the window. And then their aesthetics changed to, or I guess not change, but show more in detail, is the fact that the ships, they're made up of these organic body parts or something. Maybe it's just material that looks like actual body parts. I have no idea how the Katuri pull it off, but you remember how some ships, they have the look of bugs. They have that one ship with a brain in the middle. That always struck my head.
I guess one other thing, because I still plan for the Katuri ships to sort of not be biological, but I guess the in-lore reason was to be connected closer to nature as well, to show that despite being technologically advanced,
Right.
they can't stray from where they originally came from.
Right, but
And that's sort of why, despite being very advanced, they still like to not lose to where they came from originally.
right. But do you think in your headcanon, if you will, I don't know why I just laughed about that word, maybe because I don't use it often at all. Do you think the Katuri ships from the third game, they're not biological beings, they're probably just painted or had some materials to simulate the look of the beings on their planets?
Yep. That's sort of what I planned a bit, because the only reason why they didn't go full organic look was because of their great enemy, the Grimoires, which resulted with them basically falling from their golden age as well.
And I guess something for your lore specialist would be if there were beings that were that big turned into ships, that would probably cost the Katuri a lot of money and resources, and large beings wouldn't like it.
Trust me, as a person who had to work with farm animals before for work experience, I know what it's like.
Yeah. A big brain just shoved onto a ship.
Yeah, animals may look cute, but they are mean. They are really mean. I remember the one time I was minding my own business and a bunch of geese were chasing me for no reason.
Don't worry, they're friendly enough. It's no big deal. And now for
That's all they all. That's all they all say. But I know they're secretly
I mean,
despondent.
just don't bother them. That's it. No big deal. Just walk past them. Okay, so now for some other questions outside of your animations. Because we are talking about a series of Flash games, can you recall when and how you stumbled across the Real Space Saga Flash games?
It was when I was in primary school. That's when I discovered Real Space 2 through Miniclip, because one of the first games I ever played, the Flash games I ever played, was Canyon Defense.
Oh, yeah.
And that's sort of what got me interested into it as well. Also because I spent hours watching the demo thing where it showed the ships flying past each other, firing and battling. That's sort of what tickled my childhood for sci-fi stuff as well.
Right, and to make things more clear, was Miniclip the first Flash games website you came across?
Yes.
Awesome. So,
I guess because my parents were a bit superstitious with some stuff, you know?
I get
Because
it.
this was when the internet... It was kind of like when the internet was in, like, a...
Still in its
child's
young years,
age?
yeah, I get it. I understand what you're talking about. Don't worry. So,
I feel like an 80-year-old man right now.
okay. Don't get too old. For me, I don't recall when specifically, but how I discovered the Real Space Saga started from when I was playing Flash games on Miniclip. And during that time, the Real Space game featured was Real Space 2 Emperor's Revenge. And from there, in the final level of Real Space 2, we see Earth got destroyed.
Along with their moon factory base, because, you know, at first I thought it was just like an asteroid, but that was straight up the moon.
Right, and I wanted to continue actually. At the end of the game, we see a message talking in the perspective of the Katuri, where they would face off against the United Fleet's Apocalypse Outpost. And the final line in the message talking about how we will see that in the next game in Real Space 3. So during those years, I Googled it, which led me to a website that is now gone called arcadetown.com, which served as the main hub or a place known to feature all of the Real Space games, because I remember there were 2 games in the perspective of the United Fleet. One of them was a top-down bird's eye view where you are a gunner watching over a group of ships. Then the next one, again, in the perspective of the United Fleet. You are manning a turret on an outpost. So Arcade Town, because it hosted many Flash games, I don't recall, but I think in comparison, and I could be wrong, I think Arcade Town was one of the sites that actually gave you the option to download the game's full version free demo, and also to choose a different option, which was to purchase an actual copy of the game. Whereas Miniclip, for example, I recall there are games that had a demo, like not the full version, but just a demo. But then the full version, whether you want to download a 1-hour free trial or buy an actual copy, the options are not there on Miniclip. If there were options for that, I think it would just be redirecting you to the developer's website, because I've seen that case for a lot of the Flash games from memory. So games like Governor of Poker and what else? There was Rocket Man.
Angry Birds, if that counts, or
I don't think Angry Birds was a game on Miniclip. Was it?
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I'm talking about just Miniclip back in those years, right?
Back in the old days.
Yep. So that's what I remember. And with that out of the way, can you tell me about any other Flash games you played other than the Real Space games?
There was Canyon Defense,
Right.
Colony, Chris Alien Conflict from Lego, Rock and War, Alien Apocalypse, Myth Wars, Canyon Defense 1 and 2, Orbital Onslaught, Star Dominion, Battalion Ghosts and Battalion Vengeance, Hume Alien Battles, Tower of Doom, Massive War, Road of the Dead, Epic War 5 Hell's Gate, Battle Gear, Alien Defense of the Colony, Obliterate Everything 1 and Obliterate Everything 2, Hume vs. Zerg from 1 to 3, Echoes Operation Stranglehold, Age of War, and Age of War 2, Armies of Ages, Squadron Agari, Energy Invaders, Dark Base Real Time Strategy, both the human version and the alien version, Commando 2,
Oh yeah.
Battle for Asia, Commando 1, Battle for Britain, Commando Assault, and I think there was also Stick War, and Alien Invasion 1, and Alien Invasion 2, Paladog, Star Apocalypse, Shades, Shadez, Deep Sea Hunter, and there was also other few that I'm trying to remember. Spacecraft. I think that's all I got right now.
You said Deep Sea Hunter. Are you talking about Deep Sea Patrol?
Oh no, I actually recently got into that game now, but Deep Sea Hunter's like a little game. Pilot a submarine and go into the deeps to trigger your thalassophobia about the ocean.
What perspective is it showing you?
The side view, where you go down into the deep parts of the ocean. But instead of your enemies being submarines, you basically fight fish and Cthulhu.
Oh, okay. I'm pretty sure you're talking about the title of the game. I'm pretty sure it's Deep Sea Patrol, because your enemies are not creatures, but they're just submarines, like an actual army or faction, right?
Yep.
Yep, Deep Sea Patrol. It's pretty much made by I'm pretty sure the same people that made Commando 2.
Yep, it was. They also did something called Super Robot War. They also
really.
Great, there's enough in my room.
And it's funny enough, on the note of the Commando games, so that series of games, especially with Deep Sea Patrol, the special effects, or not the special effects, the sound effects are actually from, people were pointing this out, okay, so I don't really know. The sound effects are actually from Metal Slug.
Huh, neat.
Yeah, that's what people pointed out in the comments. A lot of fast talking now. Okay, I'll slow down. Okay, so the game Commando, the first one before Commando 2, that's the one thing people pointed out in the comments section of a video. And from there, yeah, it was an interesting thing to learn. And even with Commando, just like Commando 2, the soundtracks of the game, it's awesome. I love it. I always listen to them. I like how they nail the intense tone, just to show the severity of the situation, especially if you're dealing with a boss that you just can't kill, right? Because in Commando 1 and 2, there are certain bosses on certain levels that you just cannot get past unless you had weapons from further levels. Right?
Yep.
And so, from my experience, the first ever Flash games and website I stumbled across was Shockwave.com. During those years, I remember it was dominated by mostly racing games, but it also has its fair share of sports games as well. So, I remember Flash games such as Redline Rumble, the series, mostly Redline Rumble, Drift and Burn 365, Sunset Racer, Sky Racer Impulse, Sewer Run Night Ops, which is a sequel to Sewer Run. Then you got Speed Racer The Great Plan, which is based off of the anime, and I think it's also based off of the anime's first episode. Then you got the Gutterball series, which has Gutterball 3D and Gutterball 2. So these are just some examples of some of the Flash games I remember from Shockwave.com. And then the second website I came across is miniclip.com, which became the website that I actually spend more time on it compared to Shockwave. Because after I found out about the more variety Miniclip offers in comparison to Shockwave, my time on Shockwave.com became less and less during those years. But if you were to ask me which website would I side with and what site represents me the most when it comes to the memories of those games, It would be Yahoo.tw, which is Yahoo Taiwan, because that site has its own hub of Flash games, as a matter of fact. And and that site is gone now, so don't bother with it.
Lost media.
Okay, it's considered lost media. I can deal with that. Don't worry. But how I actually discovered, no, not what I discovered. Now the one thing I considered now, if you were to ask me this important question, my favorite Flash game from that site is called Magic Ball. But now here's the thing I just discovered now, which is a mistake on my part. So that game has, and I'll get to the mistake part later, that game has my favorite soundtrack of all time, and it's the one you hear at the end of my videos, which is the Stage Clear soundtrack. And to give a translation of the game's full title, it's called Magic Ball, Magic Ball. I often refer to that game by those two words because the second part of the game's title is just the first two words repeated. However, this is where the mistake comes in. So, while I often refer to the game as Magic Ball, it turns out the mistake right here is I often refer to it as Magic Ball because on Google Translate, when I input the characters in, often, and I guess most of the time, all the time, Google Translate interpreted the title as Japanese title. It's actually a title written in Mandarin. So when you actually put it to detect Mandarin, the translation actually comes out properly to the answer, which is Moneyball, Moneyball. So that was a big mistake on my part for referring to that title for a long time. And I will tell you how I actually bothered to find the translation for it in the first place. So a while ago, when I found out about Flashpoint, I got somebody to archive the game and even the soundtrack of it as well. And when I put the title into Google Translate, I didn't pay attention to the buttons on the top. So I thought, oh, it's called Magic Ball. Okay, here you go. But then fast forward to right now, years later, it turns out it's only called Magic Ball because I was looking at the answer the auto detection feature gave me. So to that guy who extracted the game for me, thank you for doing so. And I'm sorry for referring to the game in the wrong title, but hey, thanks for extracting that soundtrack. I love it so much. I could listen to it over and over again, I'm telling you. Because I'll be honest, just like in my childhood, that soundtrack, I couldn't stop listening to that soundtrack for like more than one time, two times, three times. I just love it so much. And even now, I listen to the soundtrack.
Taste of the classics, right?
Oh, I just had to listen to the soundtrack. I just love it so much. Yep. So from that mistake and to my final point, there's also HP Games, which is a hub that hosted many of the full versions of Flash games or single-player downloadable games. And how you can play the full versions, here's how it would go. So you open the client up. Then you can have a free trial, which is done by, putting tokens in them, or I guess they offered a free trial, or you could purchase the actual game itself. Here's the difference on how HP Games handled free trials for the games that were placed on their client. If you were going for a free trial, that way, you can also have tokens. And the tokens, there's a fun animation of it. When you click the token, it goes into the slot. And during that time, HP Games, they offered their own way of how they make money and how you can play certain games, which I would say it makes sense because there can be games out there that you want to try, but it may not catch your full-time interest. So you can purchase tokens, and those tokens serve as your free trial. So let's say you want to play Phoenix Assault, right? So I'm pretty sure the game would give you, like 3 tokens to put in to try. Afterwards, you can buy more tokens or buy the actual copy. And even if you want to go to a different game, same deal. You either buy the game or you buy tokens to try it out because, you may not be playing the game for a long time, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of got mixed up there with the token stuff, but I think with HP games, I think for someone like you, because you like Flash games as well, I think I would also see you playing those games full time as well. But I think now, and look, I know they're just trying to make money. I had my fun times on HP games, but logically speaking, it would have been better if you could purchase the Flash games from the actual developers' websites, right? Or the actual sites that were delegated with a task, like Real Space 3. And
Okay.
do you know other games like, what else? Plants vs. Zombies?
Oh, I love that game. I remember playing it a lot as a kid.
And then, okay, now, not a mobile game, but an actual computer game, like, Insane Aquarium Deluxe?
Haven't heard of that.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
What?
Okay, so that game, it's one game made by a company called, okay, let's see, PopCap Games. So they make games even for mobile as well, such as Plants vs. Zombies, I think. Hopefully I got that right. I'll look it up later. So Insane Aquarium Deluxe, it's basically, it has its own campaign, but it also has its own aquarium, okay? So each level, you're taking care of fish, and you're trying to keep them healthy and to fend off any aliens in order to pass the level. And in between levels, you can purchase more fish as well, and you can also feed them. Now, outside of the campaign, have your own aquarium, which is like your own single-player sandbox. You can adopt as many fish as you want, customize your aquarium to how it looks, and every day, the shop will have different fish for you to purchase. And each series of aquatic life, there's different variants for each one. The only difference is they come with different color schemes in their design. So hopefully you got the whole idea of the game in your head.
Okay.
And any other questions regarding Flash games I've played?
No, I think that's all I got for my questions.
I guess my story about Flash games was too much for you. Alright, so what is your favorite soundtrack from any Flash games?
My favorite type of soundtrack for Flash games?
Any one that you can remember.
Oh, that's actually kind of difficult.
I don't suppose one of them is from Real Space 3.
Maybe.
Because once again, that game has really good soundtracks, especially when they try to capture the tone of how you would feel when you're out in space, especially when you're all alone and far away from home. And funny enough, I did see this one old Modern Warfare 2 video, again, the game from 2009. It was one video where somebody was showing an Easter egg or secret. The soundtrack he used for the video, one of them was actually from Real Space 3. So that caught my attention for that video.
I need the link.
I'll try to find it for you after the call. And during those years, when the now Flash games were still on many of their respective websites, did you play on a computer that was considered a gaming computer during those years, or no?
When I first played the Flash games,
Yeah.
for most of it was sort of played in my primary school when I first started, but overall I sort of used the PC for gaming and stuff, and drawing as well.
Okay, so it wasn't anything crazy then.
No, just something simple, yet good and fun to use.
That does remind me though, sometimes when I went to the library as a kid, one time I was playing on shockwave.com. So how I discovered Miniclip, from the best I remember, someone actually came up to me who was much older than me, and then he told me, hey, go to this website, Miniclip. And from there I was, oh, this is awesome, that's really cool. But then again, I obviously don't remember everything clearly, despite what I remember, because for all I know, perhaps I stumbled across Miniclip before that guy showed up at the library and told me about it. But hey, if that guy was out there and I met him today and I still remember him, I would love to tell him, hey, thanks for showing me miniclip.com. Do you remember that kid at the library? Yep, that was me. Yeah,
Wow.
that's just a... it always surprised me, like, wow, someone at a library just came up to me and just said, oh, do you want to check out this website? And ever since, he played a part in telling me about this cool website of Flash games. And let's see. Okay, so for my answer, during those years, and it's the same thing in your case. I never had a gaming computer or what could have been considered a crazy gaming computer back in those times. I only had a HP laptop, and it ran just about any in-browser game without a problem. But it was only when I tried to play the full versions that my laptop couldn't handle, and that was it. But looking back, perhaps if I was to play the full versions of certain games on window mode, that could have circumvented the problem, because my laptop, the screen wasn't anything that the full versions liked, so I guess that could have been the issue, and I guess the specs also contributed to the problem. Because then again, a lot of games that I played during those times, I really liked the full versions, because as you know, full versions of a Flash game, they offered more, like the actual experience, whereas the one in the browser is just a demo, right? Yep. And that also made me remember at what point my laptop became a mess that couldn't be used anymore. I would say it was the start of 2014, from what I remember, and to go back a bit, I think it was around 2013 when the Burning Rubber series started to show itself with some of their games that were more hardware intensive, because I remember that series of Flash games, when I tried to run them, my laptop couldn't handle them at all, so it resulted in my browser crashing. But the good news was, during those years, any bad experience I had with Flash games was little in comparison to my good experiences. So thank goodness that was the case, because as I said, I have lots of memories of Flash games, and any bad experiences, they're rare. And I just realized I was repeating myself, but hey, that's something I still remember about the Burning Rubber series. Nothing against the devs, obviously. I'm just pointing out what happened with my old computer. And funny enough, the devs that make the Burning Rubber series, they're still out there today. The last time I saw them on their Discord server, I think they were in the process of making another Burning Rubber Flash game.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's awesome, because the sad reality is, most of the time, okay, devs, companies, whatever you want to call them, after the Flash games took off and as the years went by, they're off to other careers. And often they don't make a famous name for themselves. It's their choice, right? Because when you try to look for, okay, where did this guy go? Who are the owners? And the one thing you will see is that they often stayed under the radar for the most part. And who knows where they are to this day with their careers, right? For all I know, one of them probably works on Call of Duty, for all I care.
Oh, God help their soul of all those people.
Yeah, but even those times, Flash games, I remember Redline Rumble 2. There was supposed to be a full version in development, as hinted by the game's main menu. But that never came to reality during those years, and now that I mentioned that game, it sparks my curiosity if any companies that made Flash games during those times did well with sales of the full versions. And again, even now, I think logically, games that are known to be on consoles obviously made more money than Flash games. But the one thing is, you could never find the earnings on which company made what. Like, let's say you wanted to look for the person or the company that made Redline Rumble 2. If they had a full versions, for example, let's just say they did, what was their earnings per year, let alone a single month? Because again, back at those times, I know parents wouldn't be wasting money on a full version of a Flash game unless it was a gift, right?
Yep. That's what parents are like.
But what about you, though? Back at the time, did you try to persuade your parents to buy you a copy of any full version of a Flash game?
There was Real Space free. It took some time to convince them.
Yep.
And eventually they caved in.
They caved in, yeah. But when you bought it, though, oh, this is one thing I remember. Back at that time, Real Space 3, they offered a physical copy as well.
They did?
Yeah. One of the options was you could buy a disc of it.
Man, I'm jealous.
Well, not for console, obviously.
Oh, I was talking about PC.
Yeah, PC, come on. How do you play Real Space 3 on a console? I think you
Don't
could.
ask me. I mean, they do the same for other weird games.
Yeah, I can't believe that memory just came back. A physical copy of the game. Holy crap. I didn't expect you to be so surprised, though. That's the thing.
Always expect the unexpected.
Yeah, so you answered one of my other questions already, that you played Real Space 3, but Anything else though other than Real Space 3? The full versions, that is.
I guess I wanted to try and get the full version for 2012's Zombies vs. Aliens. That is the one time I failed to convince my parents, though, which made me sad.
What was the reason?
I don't know, probably because it was the first time we ever got an iPad.
Oh, okay.
I still won't forgive them for that.
Yeah. But then again, their choices of not buying, Flash games, or I wouldn't blame them because some things, I guess they're not worth it. Like, when you go to the mall or movie theater, there's arcade machines and the parents just let the kids, sit there, adjust the steering wheel and stuff like that. Because, they don't want to waste money. Which I respect that. I do.
True.
Because I know this is a far-fetched kind of thing or a far-away thing, but years later, they're probably going to buy a copy of a better game, right? By themselves.
Neat.
Yeah, because the one thing that I always like when going to the movie theater was trying out those racing games. What about you?
Oh, you mean like Mario Kart?
Yeah, I played Mario Kart on the DS and on the Wii.
I guess for me, one of them was Aliens Armageddon, which was like Xenomorphs invading Earth.
But then again, for the arcade machines, the most that I've seen are the racing games. That's the one thing I enjoyed. The one thing that I felt should have improved on was the fact that those games, they don't offer a 6-speed or 5-speed manual. Like a lot of arcade machines, if it's a racing game and they have a manual transmission option, it's usually just a 4-speed manual. Not really awe-inspiring, but you can still have fun.
Yep. It's like one of those things where you have to shut down your brain just to enjoy it.
Well, yeah. Because in racing games, you can cause crashes and stuff like that. No problem.
You can also cause that in real life, but you might get arrested.
Yeah. And what else? Okay, so for myself, when it comes to what's your favorite genre of Flash games? Come on.
RTS.
What does it stand for again?
Real-time strategy.
Is it one of those like top-down games where you're watching it in a bird's eye view and you're placing stuff on the map?
Kind of sometimes.
Like Canyon Defense?
Yeah, kind of.
Yep, that's one game I've played.
Nice.
Yep, I still remember it to this day. So for myself, as I was going to tell you and skip ahead, that I prefer racing games because it was the most I came across. And anything else, I still enjoyed them. So as I said, even something like Sewer Run, I'm not sure if you know that one, which is mostly a sports genre, a Flash game that's centered around skateboarding, but it has a racing element to it because you're racing off against other skaters. Then there's games like Gutterball 2, which does not have a racing element to it. You are enjoying the game either at your own pace, or you can face off against a non-player character. And the good news is, whatever score you get, it's no big deal. No one's winning or losing. You just get what you performed. The score is displayed there of your performance, and then that's it. You call it a day or play again. So that's a good thing. It's pretty casual, I could tell you that. And after this call, I could show you some videos of it. And it was one of the games I found myself actually coming back to on a frequent basis when it came to the sports Flash games. And as a matter of fact, I did draw stuff back then because what I liked to draw back then were stuff I've seen in Flash games. So for the case of Gutterball 3D and its sequel, Gutterball 2, were the two games I really liked in terms of visuals. So
that must have been absolute guttering.
Yeah, so seeing the whole alley, how bright it is, how colorful it is, and how shiny it is, especially the default map. During those years, when I wasn't playing Flash games, I did draw stuff. So it's not just the Gutterball alleys that I drew on a piece of paper. What else did I draw? I did draw some of the racing games I played as well. For example, Redland Rebel 2 I mentioned earlier. I did used to try to draw how the perspective of the game looks. I'll be honest with you, most of my drawings revolved around the Gutterball games because I never really got a chance to play the full versions during those times. Either drawing like from the game or drawing a made-up alley of my own. That was the case. And yeah, I did convince my parents to get me Gutterball 3D. No, I didn't actually get them to buy me the game. It was a free trial. And I played the Space Alley for Gutterball 3D, and then afterwards the free trial ended. I couldn't play the Wacky Alley. But I could tell you though, the Gutterball Alley in space, it's actually much cooler because you're in space, and when the ball and the pins go off, they just float away from the map. And then Gutterball 2 came along, and that game had more alleys. They had some alleys where there's more than one path to get there. So there's one alley, it was like the wacky alley, but it was elevated to go uphill. So the first path is the default path straight forward up. And the one on the left and right, they go in a squiggly line, crossing each other to go to the pins. And then some other alleys, instead of the gutter alley, you had water.
Nice.
Yeah, and then my favorite alley or map of the Gutterball series, it's the Lotus Alley, because that one, it took place on a Japanese map, and that one, it's pretty beautiful. The alley's design may not be as complex, but the visuals are quite nice. So, for my next question, which Flash games did you recall to be very difficult?
I guess it was, probably Echo's Operation Stranglehold.
Okay, I never heard of that one before, but thanks for telling me. You want to go on about it?
From what I know, it's like a action strategy game, which is set like a 300 years in the future, where apparently you're some human cyborg against a cyborg alien race. The lore is a bit weird, and the game is quite old. And I guess for second place, it was Epic War 5 Hell's Gates. Since I found out the hard way, you have to keep your hero alive.
And anything else?
That's all I got probably for now, to be honest.
Okay, so for all the Flash games I found difficult, it starts with Speed Racer. It took too long for me to get to first place in that game. And to walk you through how the whole game works, you start off in last place. Then the first challenge for me was the mountain section of the map, where I was too stupid to understand you're supposed to activate the belt tires in order to make it across the said section safely. Then getting off the mountain, you have to race all the way to the final car in first place, the red car driven by Dudgery. And just like in the anime, that character, he doesn't play fair, so he's gonna try to bump you out.
Damn.
Yeah, it took multiple tries, and that's one character that it took me way too long. And even during those times, it's no surprising that when I actually got first place, I was like, yeah, I finally beat him. And then here comes something even more challenging. There was Redline Rumble. So in this Flash game, what I found very difficult was just the whole thing, I guess, from starting after the fourth car that you unlock. But it was a fun experience how it presents everything, and it was a fun game where you can try out cars in the manual transmission, because you know in most games, or Flash games I guess, it's always the automatic transmission, but in this game you can use the 5-speed manual. And
Something where simple is always funner. Something where simple is more fun than stuff nowadays, right?
And funny enough, I discovered in one of my playthroughs, like, not a video, but I did replay the game one time months ago. It turns out you don't need to use the most recent car you unlock to beat the recent opponent. You can take the fourth car, and it's possible. But I never recorded that thing anyway. That moment that I won, I told myself I should have recorded it, but then I realized, okay, Flash games don't really get anywhere with views nowadays, right? And then,
Yep.
Then moving to Shockwave.com. Moving away from Shockwave.com, there was Miniclip.com, and the first game wasn't as difficult. Commando 1 was easy enough that you can go to the final level, but then it really takes the cake when you go to Commando 2. When I started out, it was surprising that after the fourth level, the rest are just the first 4 levels, but at a higher difficulty, if not with more enemies in each respective section. But then again, when it comes to level design, the fourth level is the best one because of how much you have to go through and various variety of contents you see on the map and the different pathways you can take. Although for me, it was a habit. I often take just one path. For each moment, the game gave me 2 options. I'm not sure about you.
I don't think so.
You remember the fourth level, right?
In Commando, where you fought against
the
that
second
giant...
one. The second one.
Oh, in Commando 2?
Yeah.
Where you fought against that giant flying thing that was going into space, I think.
Yeah, the rocket. Because in the game, after you drop down from the bridge, you're given 2 options. You can go either to the left, which gave you the tribe, or go to the right, which gave you the bees. And then after that, you go through a series of buildings. And in the buildings, there's different pathways. They always offer 2 choices, like the bridge section I mentioned earlier.
I hate bees.
Yeah. Then again, with the building sections, yeah, even I found myself just going the same choices every time. Is there anything else you want to tell me about Flash games and their difficulty? Anything for me?
I guess one of the difficult things was in Real Space 2 when you had to try and keep those shuttles safe to head towards Starbase 69.
Oh yeah,
That was a nightmare.
the base that was, I think it was in the blue color and the shape of a flower, right?
I think it was purple, bluish.
And it wasn't a flower, it was more like a vase.
I wish I knew.
And apart from Flash games, what video games do you currently play? And do you find them difficult?
Iron Meat. It's a pretty fun game, and it can be difficult, but that depends on your skill sometimes. It's actually quite a fun game. Simple, yet fun.
What about any first-person shooter games?
Haven't been playing any, to be honest. Since a lot of them, there aren't really any first-person games that I play nowadays, to be honest.
Or any third-person games?
I'm kind of tempted to get Helldivers too, to be honest.
Oh, Helldivers 2. Anything in the third-person perspective, anything recent I can tell you? I did play the final beta of Mecha Break.
Was it fun?
Oh yeah. Basically, it's just mecha combat. And the formula for the game is just like your typical FPS game, CSGO or Call of Duty. You know what I mean. You got casual mode, then you got the competitive mode. It's that simple.
Oh boy. Call of Duty competitive mode.
Well, I would say, for when it comes to mecha stuff, it's easy enough that anyone can learn it because you see the weaponry that mechs usually have or they often portrayed in having. It can help you with 2v1 situations, and some of the weapons have their own auto-aiming technology. So if you're not really good at games or not good at games anymore or just tired, it will help you. That's a thing. And I can tell you right now from my experience with the beta, anybody can climb the competitive ladder, but for me in the final weeks of the game I made it up to Grandmaster, and then that was it. I just decided to play the casual mode, and that was it, because I didn't want to go crazy with competitive mode all the time. I just wanted to relax.
You're one of those kinds of people that just like to enjoy a game, something simple to enjoy with people and friends.
Well, I will be honest with you, it's been a long time since I touched a competitive mode. The last time I tried that was when I decided to play CS2 when it got renamed. And then during that time, I told myself, look, I don't want to touch the competitive mode. I really don't. But then I just caved in, tried Wingman, tried competitive, and then afterwards, I was telling myself, holy crap. That's why I quit those two game modes.
Was it crazy for you?
Yeah, trying to micromanage and everything and everybody, and trying to hold your own weight too, right?
Damn.
Like trying to get jump scared and trying to predict, like, okay, where's the enemy coming from? Is if I'm planting for long on Dust 2 a bomb site A, there's 3 ways the enemy will show up. Either from cat, from CT, or from long. But then again, it's not to say I did not have any good memories. I obviously did. Especially with the map, Cache. It's too bad though that the map is gone, although they are bringing it back, but the time to wait for it's gonna be long from the looks of it. Any questions for me?
Not I got.
Okay, so if you could travel to a planet, what would it look like?
Like any kind of planet?
You don't have to name a planet if you don't know them by name. You can describe one for me.
If I could travel to a planet, what would it be? Probably Mars.
That's it?
That's the best I could think of.
If I could travel to a planet, it would be a planet that's mostly water. I think the inspiration for that could be because I played Phoenix Assault and I discovered how beautiful that planet looked. So if I had to pick an actual planet, especially the ones that were discovered, I think it was called, Kepler 22b. That one is full of water, I believe. And I think that
Guessing it was fun to play?
What?
Was it like fun to play?
Fun to play? CSGO?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had my good moments here and there. But then again, back then, I wasn't playing on a good computer, but I still managed. Surprise, surprise. But I wish I could have climbed the competitive ladder out of Gold Nova.
Guessing you struggled a lot?
Well, yeah, plus back then I was playing on a Mac computer, nothing good. And then after the Mac computer, I got a pre-built, which was my previous computer. That one, of course, yep, I didn't have any luck. And then now, I don't see myself playing CSGO's competitive mode. I'm just waiting for some other games to show up. But currently, I see myself focusing on Mecha Break when it comes back for its official release. And here's something which should be familiar to you if you saw my videos. What do you personally recall from your childhood when it comes to shopping malls?
I guess there was always going to a Fenwick shop, which had a bunch of Transformers there, which I always liked to look at because I wasn't always allowed to purchase yet until I was old enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of where we also went to get my first ever iPad as well. It was really fun.
Anything else?
I guess it's because usually whenever we go to a mall, it's usually for shopping reasons, nothing else, to be honest.
Okay. So I have some videos that revolve around that subject. It's something that's considered lost media because what that is, not everything is archived. Sometimes it's up to those who recall such memories or looking for sources that have photos or videos of such buildings. And somebody like myself, I still hold many memories of what some malls used to have and some memories of the malls you cannot locate online, either removed or forgotten entirely. So the only way would be to contact the owners of the mall. However, when I thought of this idea, there were two things to note. I wouldn't have the patience for waiting on a 24-hour plus deadline for them to reply back. And I also had the thought, companies may not be open to helping out with such projects, especially if they were contacted by an individual as opposed to a company or somebody else with a greater reputation. And such ways to commemorate these memories of going to the mall and how they used to look like, I commissioned an artist to recreate a part of the Sherway Gardens shopping mall from what it used to look like. And it features characters from Azure Lane. The idea overall was to show characters at the mall, but it wasn't something like time travel, but more along the lines they went to a building where somebody recreated what the mall used to look like, both inside and outside. And the one final point to bring up, the one thing that still sits in my mind today about the Sherway Gardens shopping mall, the one thing I still remember, and I cannot even find one photo, one video of it, my goodness, the Japanese style bamboo water fountain where it used to be in that mall. There's no video or photo of it, no matter where I'm looking, but I did recall seeing a short video of it years ago, but when I look it up, there's no trace of it. So overall, what I was trying to tell you is that I remember things about the malls I've been to, but specifically, I am talking about what the malls used to look like, because it's true, not everything is archived on the internet, and it comes down to personal experiences. So for example, where you are, there could be certain shopping malls that you went to and what they used to look like from your childhood. You cannot locate certain sections of how the mall used to look like on the internet. Do you understand what I just told you?
Yep.
Yeah, and no matter how hard you look, it can be a dead end, right? Because as long as a certain section is not famous, that place in the mall is lost. So the only way you want to find something related to the mall, you have to look for its well-known areas. So for the case of Sherway Gardens, you're looking for the middle section because that section is what the mall is famous for, and lots of films were filmed there. I guess not a lot, but there were films that took place there, and there's always media of how that section of the mall looks, especially from the past, right? So for my next question, do you have a favorite vehicle?
Is it like any vehicle, like fiction or real?
Let's go with a real one. Come on, say it.
Probably something simple like a BMW, to be honest.
Interesting. Is there a specific make and model that you like?
Not really, just a normal BMW.
Could you at least give me the chassis?
Uh,
Say it.
it's It's the one I find interesting is the BMX5.
Oh, okay.
I might probably just send a photo. Give me a second. Something like this one here.
Right. I will take a look at it afterwards. X5. So wait, an X5. That's a SUV then, from what I remember. The big one.
You think so?
The X5, right? That's the SUV.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah,
Yep.
just trying to remember on the top of my head because I don't know B&Ws that well,
Damn.
especially without looking at the photo that you sent. For me, mine would be the 2011 Impreza WRX STI sedan.
Nice.
Yeah, the one made by Subaru. And that's the one thing about that car that now I have a better understanding, if you will. The one thing you'll notice about cars today, you notice it's rare to see a car with a smiley face.
Probably because of some regulation thing.
Really? I just chalked it up to the fact that maybe the idea of curving metal or parts is more costly and hard, whereas if it's not curved and the car looks more ticked off looking, it's cheaper and easier and less expensive.
Damn.
Well, because what else could it be, right?
True.
Yeah. And has any other YouTuber asked you to be a part of a collaboration, or have you asked anybody else, vice versa?
Not really.
So you never reached out to anybody to see if they could help?
I mean, I guess I tried by saying we probably might need some more animators, but no response yet, to be honest.
And have you seen any of my videos before?
Not really, since usually because of stuff like in real life in college, you know?
Yeah, I'll send you some links afterwards so you can check them out.
Nice.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. And do you have any misconceptions about interview videos?
Not really, to be honest.
Because the one thing I did remind War Wrong in the beginning, because he may not know, plus it was my first time doing that kind of video, I had to obviously remind whoever I'm interviewing, don't be nervous, this is a casual thing, just be happy.
Okay.
Yeah. And a final thing that, and I wish they would see this, do you have anything to say to the folks that made the Real Space series, or to anybody who made Flash games from our childhood?
Thanks a lot for making a nice game, honestly.
Yeah. Anything else?
That's all I got.
Yep, that's good enough. Okay, so thanks for showing up to this interview. This one is clearly longer than the first one I've done, so thanks for sharing what you had to say about animation and Flash games. This whole interview totaled to 10 pages, as a matter of fact, which was a step up from the first episode, which was only 8 pages. So with nothing else to say, thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you later.
See you later. I'm quite excited to see this when it's on YouTube.
Yep.